Welcome to Idea TV News at 9. I am Chinatu Oji. Let's begin with the headlines. Nigeria moves to activate a National Research and Innovation Fund under UNESCO SANKORE project. NRIF bill set for presidential assent as stakeholders meet in Abuja. Supreme Court backs President's emergency powers. Fitch upgrades Côte d'Ivoire, says political risks have faded. South Africa moves to loosen satellite internet ownership rules. And away from Africa, MX's promise hit roadblocks amid Middle East turmoil. In business, inflation eases as Nigeria records 14.45% in November. In health, South Africa NGOs push for healthcare access for all. In sports, Nigeria retained West Africa trophy with 40-run win over Rwanda. Now the news in full. Nigeria has taken a major step towards strengthening its science, technology, and innovation ecosystem as key stakeholders gathered in Abuja for the first stakeholders consultation workshop on the activation of the National Research and Innovation Fund, NRIF, under the UNESCO SANKORE project. The meeting brought together government officials, lawmakers, universities, research institutions, professional bodies, and development partners from Nigeria and the United Kingdom to chart a clear path for operationalizing the fund. Speaking at the opening, the Director General of Sheda Science and Technology Complex, SHETSCO, Professor S.Y. Oyenekwe, said the focus is to move beyond policy to practical implementation, ensuring research funding is transparent, accountable, and aligned with the African Union Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals.
We are truly grateful for your presence. Your commitment to seeing the NRF fully activated and your insistence that Nigeria must fund its own knowledge creation reflect the kind of leadership that transforms nations. We are truly grateful for your presence here today. Allow me also to warmly welcome our new Permanent Secretary. Sir, you have already demonstrated clarity, dedication, and readiness to drive progress.
The Federal Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology also reaffirmed government commitment to providing regulatory and institutional framework for the fund. Participants acknowledged that effective funding of research and innovation will boost competitiveness, reduce dependence on imports, support young innovators, and drive growth in health, agriculture, technology, and education. Meanwhile, the federal government moved closer to activating Nigeria's National Research and Innovation Fund as key stakeholders also convened in Abuja for the first consultation workshop under the SANKORE project, a UK-West Africa partnership aimed at strengthening science, technology, and innovation for sustainable development. Speaking at the opening session, Senator Minuya Abbas, chairman of the Senate Committee on Science and Technology, who was represented by his SA Charity Alaja, said lawmakers have pledged full support for the bill. He confirmed that the National Assembly will work with the ministry and other stakeholders to ensure effective funding, commercialization of research, and stronger collaboration between academia and policy. The senator said the NRIF bill provides the legal framework needed to support young innovators and end chronic underfunding in research and development. He announced that the bill will be passed and transmitted immediately to the president for assent, stressing that Nigeria can no longer afford to leave its brightest ideas without a sustainable funding structure. In the limits of the 1999 Constitution, whether the procedure adopted violated democratic governance. Delivering the lead judgment, Justice Mohammed Idris said, Section 305 of the Constitution empowers the President to take extraordinary measures to restore stability during emergencies, noting that the law does not strictly define those measures. While the suit was struck out for lack of jurisdiction and dismissed on its merit, one justice dissented, agreeing that emergencies may be declared but opposing the suspension of governors, deputies, and state lawmakers. Moving on, Fitch Ratings has upgraded Côte d'Ivoire sovereign's credit rating from BB- to BB, citing improved political stability and stronger economic fundamentals. The decision announced on Monday follows the country's largely peaceful 2025 presidential election and signals that Côte d'Ivoire has moved beyond years of election-related unrest that once weighed heavily on investor confidence. According to Fitch, the easing of political uncertainty allows the government led by President Alassane Ouattara to pursue long-term economic reforms and development plans with greater predictability. The ratings agency pointed to strong economic growth, projected at over 6%, low inflation, and improving debt levels as key factors supporting the upgrade and strengthening the country's position in international financial markets. Concerns about regional financial risk were also partly addressed, with separate analysis indicating that Côte d'Ivoire banking sector is less exposed to Senegal's rising debt than previously thought. While Fitch cautioned that security challenges in the wider Sahel region and fiscal pressures still require close monitoring, it said Côte d'Ivoire's overall outlook remains stable as reformed investment momentum and economic resilience continue to build. In another news, South Africa plans to amend its satellite internet regulations, easing the current requirement for foreign companies to cede 30% ownership in local subsidiaries to historically disadvantaged groups. The change, announced by Communications Minister Solly Malatsi on Monday, would allow companies like SpaceX's Starlink to operate in the country while meeting empowerment goals through investment in digital infrastructure rather than equity transfers. The policy adjustment follows concerns from satellite providers that local shareholding laws created barriers to entry. Malatsi said the revised rules aim to attract investments, support digital inclusion, and expand high-speed internet access in rural and underserved communities where only 1.7% of households currently have connectivity. Public consultation indicated strong support for the changes, although some lawmakers and opposition parties have warned it could favor foreign operators and weaken transformation efforts if implemented. The amendment would let telecoms fulfill empowerment objectives via infrastructure, research, and community projects rather than equity sales. Critics, including the African National Congress, argue the move could entrench foreign dominance in the strategic sector, while proponents say it modernizes the industry and improves access for South Africans. Let's go into a short break now. The news continues when we return.
AI augmented development. AI is now revolutionizing software development by automating code generation, testing, and debugging. Tools like GitHub Copilot suggest code snippets in real time, significantly speeding up the development process. However, developers need to remain cautious, as over-reliance on AI tools could introduce security vulnerabilities. As companies push for faster software delivery, AI-augmented development is becoming essential for maintaining competitiveness.
It's good to know you're still there. Now, the rest of the news. Away from Africa, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, long touted as a transformative regional connectivity project, faces growing uncertainty in the wake of Middle East instability and political volatility. The post-October 7 conflict surge, including over 100,000 casualties in Gaza and heightened Israel-Iran tensions, has exposed the fragile foundations of Arab-Israeli normalization that IMEC relies upon. Analysts warn that without a just and transparent peace framework, investor confidence and project feasibility are severely undermined. Structural and political challenges compound the situation: insufficient infrastructure in intra-Gulf railway links, limited financing, and divergent stakeholder interest from India's middle power ambitions to Gulf economic diversification and Israel's investment-driven goals have slowed progress. Israel, despite positioning itself as a corridor's game-changer, has become a major disruptor through ceasefire violations and defiance of UN resolutions, creating a climate of unpredictability that hampers coordination and regulatory alignment. U.S. policy under Trump's second term adds another layer of uncertainty, while Washington's transactional approach eases tensions with China while reducing urgency for Middle East normalization, a key pillar of IMEC. Gulf states remain cautious of aligning too closely with either Washington or Beijing, while India continues to project progress to maintain influence. Ultimately, the corridor's promise remains more aspirational than achievable, with the realities of war, politics and fractured diplomacy standing in the way of seamless regional connectivity. And now in business. Nigeria's inflation rate fell to 14.45% in November, according to new figures released today by the National Bureau of Statistics. The data show a notable decline from the 16.05% recorded in October, signaling a moderation in overall price pressures across the country. The statistics agency said the drop represents a 1.6 percentage point reduction month-on-month, while year-on-year inflation stood significantly lower than the 34.60% recorded in November last year. Officials attributed the sharp annual decline largely to a change in the inflation base year, even as prices continued to rise at a faster pace on a monthly basis. Food inflation also slowed on a yearly comparison, falling to 11.08% in November, though prices rose month-on-month due to a higher cost of staples such as tomatoes, cassava, pepper, eggs, onions and fish. The report indicates that while inflation is easing overall, households are still feeling pressure from rising food prices. And now in health. Civil society groups in South Africa advocating for equal healthcare access, highlighting cases where foreign nationals are denied medication. The NGO Collective Voices for Health Access recently launched a consensus statement and an educational booklet outlining the rights to healthcare in the country, responding to reports of foreigners being charged for chronic medication or refused treatment at Gauteng clinics. One case spotlighted is that of Flora, a Johannesburg resident since 2013, who has been on HIV treatment since 2019. She was reportedly barred from collecting her ARV medication after being asked to produce a South African identity document by members of Operation Dudula. NGOs stressed that such barriers violate the principle of healthcare for all and are calling on authorities to ensure clinics provide treatment without discrimination. The campaign seeks to raise awareness, educate the public on patients' rights, and hold institutions accountable for upholding universal access to essential health services. In sports, finally, Nigeria has successfully defended their West Africa Trophy title, defeating Rwanda by 40 runs in the final at the NCF pitch in Abuja yesterday. Yellow Greens, led by former Kenya international Steve Otikolo, replicated their 2023 triumph in Lagos, winning 9 out of 10 matches in the tournament. Batting first, Nigeria posted a competitive 153-45 in 20 overs, with Sylvester Okpe top scoring 35, not out, and captain Suleiman Rusewe contributing 34. Contributions from Salim Salau, Danladi Isaac and Vincent Adewoye combined with 13 extras ensured a challenging total for Rwanda. Rwanda's chase slowed early promise led by Didier Ndikubikwama, 33, and Khan Hamza, who's 27, but Nigeria's disciplined bowling and sharp fielding prevented any decisive partnerships. Key wickets from Ndudubem David, Isaac Okpe, and Joshua Asia broke the innings as Rwanda fell short at 117 for 9, handing Nigeria the trophy once again. That's the most we can take on Idea TV News at 9, but before we go, another recap of the headlines. We brought you news that Nigeria has moved to activate National Research and Innovation Fund under UNESCO's SANKORE projects. You also heard that NRIF bill set for presidential assent as stakeholders meet in Abuja. Supreme Court backs President's emergency powers. Fitch upgrades Côte d'Ivoire, says political risks have faded. South Africa moves to loosen satellite internet ownership rules away from Africa. IMX's promise hits roadblocks at Middle East tomorrow. In business, inflation eases as Nigeria records 14.45% in November, and in health, South Africa NGOs push for healthcare access for all. In sport, Nigeria retains West Africa Trophy with 40-run win over Rwanda. Do not forget to follow us across our different social media platforms at Idea Television. I am Chinatu Oji. Thank you so much for your time.